Good morning, Inspiration 1390 family. It's Sonya Blakey, keeping you moving and motivated in the morning on Inspiration 1390. But my job is not going to be as hard today. I'm going to have him do all the work, all the talking. Pastor Touré Roberts of the Potter's House, Dallas. Welcome to Chicago.
Thank you so much, Sonia. It's wonderful to be here. It's one of my favorite cities, truly.
Yeah, and I'm quite sure everywhere you go, everybody's always asking about your wife. How's Pastor Sarah?
Yes. She's doing great. She's actually in town with me. She's doing something else here, but we'll get together for dinner later on tonight.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible. And this is a blessed space because your father-in-law, Bishop T.D. Jakes, was in this room with me many times. It's already consecrated.
Wow.
It's already been laid up for you, Pastor Torre. So I appreciate you coming to talk about your brand new book and the exciting things that are happening with you. So your book, Knowing, I've been like scrolling through your Instagram page, and I'm like, man, I gotta read this book. I'm just compelled because all of us want to know. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has uncertainties about things. So in your mind, in your spirit, where was God leading you in writing this book, Knowing?
So I reached a point in my life where truly everything that God has promised me, at least 90% of them have been realized in my life. Now, God's not finished with me. I don't believe that He is, but I did reach this point, and I thought about the through line as I look back over my journey. What's been the through line? And for me, it is in recognizing a knowing that God has given to me and learning to train it, to trust it, make it more precise, and I wanted the world to really understand that God has blessed us with this thing that I'll talk about called knowing. And, people talk about intuition and talk about it's your sixth sense. No, it's not. To know is actually our first sense. And so really it is a returning to an incredible faculty that God has given to us to align us with His purposes for our lives.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, knowing the journey to certainty in an uncertain world. What are some of the things that you believe that people are most uncertain about? Like, what are the questions that they have?
I think many things. Everyone's in a transition of some sort. Should I stay in California or should I move to Texas? Should I start finally my passion project? Should I launch my business or should I stay in what seems like the safe comforts of my corporate job? Um, is this relationship for me? Is this relationship not? So I think that, and some people even think about leaving the country, so I think that a lot of people, because of the backdrop of, in many cases, chaos and uncertainty, people are trying to figure out, how do I anchor myself? How do I get to safe? And I understand that, and we know scientifically the brain craves predictability,
Yeah.
and when the brain doesn't get predictability, it starts operating in the not so productive part of it. Fight, flight, freeze. And so for me, knowing is about, hey, listen, yeah, these are uncertain times in many ways, but in the midst of your uncertainty, God's already got it worked out. And if we can ground ourselves in the certainty that God provides and learn to trust the gift of knowing that God gives to us, we're going to be okay, and we'll have a compass to lead us in the path that we should go in.
Yeah. How do you defeat those thoughts of doubt and I know you're saying that knowing is it's a part of us. It's who we are. It's really discernment, in my opinion. But how do you like defeat doubt? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
in those times of when you're trying to figure out things.
I am a big proponent of writing the vision and making it plain. I have an identity statement, and I write down the things that God says to me. And sometimes when God is getting ready to do something big, radical in your life that may require a step of faith, oftentimes God will front load you with a lot of confirmation. And I write that confirmation down. And here's why I think God does it. He does it because there are going to be moments when you doubt, and you have to have a weapon to fight back with. Now, this is the power of praise, so we can talk. Paul talks about this. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal;
Oh, yeah.
they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And you keep reading it out. He's talking about thoughts. These strongholds. These, in that context, he's not talking about demons. He's talking about strongholds over our thinking. So one of the weapons that you use to overcome doubt or fear or self deprecation or self-defeating thoughts is to write down the truth about who you are and rehearse it regularly.
Wow, that's good, Pastor Touré. Um, people may say, "Oh, he's a pastor. He's there. He's arrived." But what about those folks that are just kind of new to Christ or just trying to figure things out? And they pick up the book. And what are some of the things that we can start with ground level of knowing?
First of all, yes, I am a pastor among many things that I do, but I have not arrived. And I think that that's what made me really a worthy vessel to write this book, is because, yes, I might be a little further down the road spiritually than some people, but I am still on the journey. And but as it relates to practicality, I think that when people read this book, they're going to see themselves first and foremost. I open up the book basically being vulnerable about how uncertain and unsure I was when I sat down to write, and I felt like a fraud. Like, yo, wait a minute, how am I going to sit down and write this book?
Yeah.
But be going through my own, what I call a cocoon phase. And so at a very basic ground level as it relates to knowing, and let's just talk about some steps to it. First thing is, you have to realize that you can know. I did a Substack recently, and it was, I talked about the two dangerous phrases right now. I don't know, and I already know. Those, they're polar opposites, but they're both equally dangerous. Though I already know individual doesn't have space for the shift that God might be seeking to produce in their lives. And the I don't know person is the person that's going to be stuck. I'm not saying that we are going to be omniscient. This is not that book. But but God will give you an unction, a nudge about what the next step is. That can happen. And there's certain things you have to do. You have to learn how to, well, one, you got to believe that you can hear. You got to believe that you can sense. God put that in you. And then you have to practice certain disciplines, being still, wanting to hear. Because you know how it is sometimes. We say we want to hear, but we want to hear what we want to hear.
Right.
So those are some practical things.
Good. So, Pastor Touré Roberts, talk to maybe a parent that's listening. I mean, I'm a parent. I have two children, and sometimes, you want to know things for yourself, your personal, but also you have a yearning to know, like, what are the next steps? Is it okay to want to have that same knowing for your loved ones? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, well, I truly believe we have to start with ourselves. And but it's interesting you say that. I get asked often what motivates me to write a book. And for me, the biggest motivators of any a project, any book in particular, because it takes so much to put in, the big driver for me is if I had to leave my children with one resource, yeah, I'm going to do all this stuff, and, I'm going to be a good steward, and they'll get, a couple of nickels to rub together when I leave. But what's most important for me is to leave them a blueprint to God.
Okay.
That's what knowing is. Because at the end of the day, I love them with all of my heart, but He's their father. He knows things about their journey that far transcend anything I could ever know. My son, he wants to do something. I know he's called to do it, and I, in my humanity, I don't want him to go, but
Right.
but he needs to. But what blessed me was he said, Dad, you wrote about this. He said, I have a knowing, and you taught me that. You taught me how to hear from God, how to trust it, how to qualify it. And so, Dad, I'm safe. And I said, I know, I know. I know because you know.
That's powerful. So there's 12 chapters in this book. And from the first chapter, Be Still and Know, to chapter 12, Practicing Certainty. What is it that you want people to know? Who is this book for? How can it be a blessing?
This book is for anyone in transition. This book is for anyone who wants to really have practical steps, actionable steps to hear from God, to learn God's voice. It's for someone who thinks that they're past their time, that they've made too many mistakes and they've been disqualified. They're going to realize that life is still unfolding, knowing unfolds. I think it's for a student who's got a lot of questions about life, about God. Is the God of the Bible God? Is the universe God? I think it's for anyone who's on a journey of being anchored and established in the times that we're living in.
Well, all right. Well, it is a blessing to have you here, Pastor Touré Roberts. Next time when you come in this building, you got to tell Pastor Sarah she has to be here with me, too.
I will.
The power of oneness and
Mm.
seeing you guys together is magnificent, and what God is doing. A true example of his glory and his power. And you guys look so good together, too. I'm like the fashion. Let's talk about the fashion. I'm like the runway with the Roberts.
Wow.
But,
I like that.
you
That
like
might
that?
be a show. Wait a minute now.
But thank you, everybody. Pick up the book, Knowing, Pastor Touré Roberts, and make sure you're following us at Inspiration 1390 so you can see some of the interview here in studio. And it's going to be a blessing. I know it will. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.